The grand arcane arena shimmered beneath a dome of swirling, translucent power. The containment field, an ancient spell older than any kingdom, molded reality without letting it break. Inside this enchanted sphere, spells erupted with full destructive strength, yet every blow stopped just before true death. It was the only place where the greatest sorcerers could unleash their mastery without fear of ending the world. Thousands of spectators filled the Colosseum, their cheers rippling through the air like a living storm. Crystalline banners fluttered overhead, glowing softly as they reacted to the combined mana of the crowd. Tonight's duel was more than entertainment, it was a clash of two magical legacies. First to enter was Arden Vale, a human mage with prematurely grayed hair and a robe the color of deep forest emerald. Though only 35 years of exhaustive study had etched faint lines of wisdom across his face. His hands, steady, scarred, and disciplined, rested at his sides as he stepped onto the glimmering floor. Despite his youth compared to elven longevity, Arden's prowess was already whispered about in mage circles across the continent. Opposite him glided Elendor Sereths, a high elf whose azure robe shimmered like liquid starlight. Intricate sigils, marks earned across 3 centuries of dueling, glowed faintly across his sleeves. His expression was serene, but the keen spark behind his eyes betrayed a warrior excited for challenge. A single resonant chime echoed across the arena. The duel began. Arden reacted first, tracing a sweeping arc with his fingers. A transparent ward bloomed around him, crackling faintly. Elendor watched with mild amusement before raising his own barrier, thicker, more polished, humming with elven precision. Arden didn't wait. Flare burst. A spiraling sphere of fire exploded from his palms, streaking across the arena like a comet. Elendor's shield rippled violently as the flame struck, waves of heat distorting the air. The crowd gasped at the sheer force of the opening attack. But the elf remained unmoved. With a graceful motion, Elendor's hands danced, left igniting a coil of flame, right summoning a bolt of crackling lightning. The energies twined together like serpents, forming a blazing spear of fused magic. Solar Lance. The spell thundered forward. Arden braced himself as the strike hammered into his shield. Cracks of light spidered across the barrier, the force rattling the arena walls. For a moment it seemed his defense would fail. But Arden redirected the impact sideways, splitting the force into harmless arcs that carved molten streaks along the Colosseum floor. Roars erupted from the crowd. But Arden wasn't done. He swept his arm wide, conjuring a wave of water that surged like a tidal rush. Many spectators chuckled. Water against an elven master? Elendor didn't fall for it. Yet Arden's real spell came a heartbeat later. A bolt of lightning plunged into the water. The entire wave ignited with electric fury, amplifying the shock tenfold. Elendor's barrier shattered in a burst of emerald sparks. The elf blinked, stunned, then laughed softly. A clever trap. Humans and their unpredictability. The two squared off again, tension thickening. Neither mage noticed the faint tremor beneath the arena floor, an ancient force stirring, awakened by the violent clash of their combined magic. A faint rumble trembled beneath the crystalline floor, but neither Arden nor Elendor paid it any mind. The grand arcane arena often shifted and groaned under the weight of unleashed magic. To them it was simply the arena breathing. What mattered now was the duel. Elendor rolled his shoulders, letting the last sparks of Arden's electrified wave drip off his shattered ward. For the first time in decades, an opponent had forced the elven master to fight without the safety of a full barrier. He smiled. Impressive. But let's see how quickly you handle pressure, young one. Before Arden could respond, Elendor blurred forward. His fingers wove patterns so rapid the air screamed as it split around them. Frost crackled beneath his boots as a chilling wind spiraled outward. Cryophong. Shards of ice erupted from his hands, twisting into the form of a spectral wolf. The creature lunged, jaws made of razor frost snapping at Arden with savage intent. Arden countered by slamming both palms to the ground. Stone Guard. A barrier of rock surged upward, the wolf's bite shattering it into 1,000 glittering fragments. Arden staggered slightly but held his footing. The crowd thundered their approval. Both mages circled each other, assessing, calculating. Arden exhaled slowly, gathering his focus. Elendor's attacks were swift, precise, almost surgical. There was no room for wasted motion. You read the battlefield well, Elendor said, drifting backward, but can you adapt when the field itself changes? He snapped his fingers. The arena's temperature plummeted. Frost crept outward from Elendor's feet, racing across the floor like living veins. The chill bit at Arden's legs, slowing his movements. Elendor's specialty, environmental manipulation. Arden clenched his jaw. Two could play that game. He thrust his arm upward. Solar flare pulse. A miniature sun detonated above him, bathing the arena in molten gold. Heat rolled outward in waves, vaporizing Elendor's frost and forcing the elf to shield his eyes. Steam exploded upward as fire met ice. The audience roared. Elendor laughed lightly. Excellent. You're pushing me to use spells I haven't in centuries. But the tremor under the arena pulsed again, stronger this time. Cracks of faint violet light slithered across the floor between the combatants. The energy was unlike anything produced by a mage. It felt ancient, buried, restless. Arden felt it too, a faint pressure against the back of his mind like something knocking from below. No, something trying to rise. But Elendor, still focused on the duel, raised both arms. A swirling column of wind enveloped him, lifting him slightly off the ground. Air step ascension. He floated higher, gathering power from the surrounding air. Lightning sparked at his fingertips, building into a storm contained within a single being. Arden knew what was coming. Elendor was preparing one of his legendary finishing spells, an attack that once leveled an entire battlefield. And the arena floor vibrated harder. As Elendor summoned his storm and Arden prepared to strike back, a deep crack split the arena floor, revealing a violet glow and something massive beginning to rise from the darkness below. The violet crack widened, splitting the arena floor with a grinding roar that drowned out even the crowd. Spectators leaned forward, confused murmurs spreading like ripples across the stands. The arena had never malfunctioned in centuries, not once. Its enchantments were unbreakable. Or so everyone believed. Arden felt the surge of energy before it happened, a pressure, ancient and immense, pushing upward from the depths. Elendor hovered above the battlefield, lightning coiling around his arms, yet even his eyes flicked downward in momentary hesitation. A heartbeat later, the arena floor ruptured. Boom. Fragments of enchanted crystal blasted into the air as a column of violet energy erupted upward. Both mages were thrown backward, Arden sliding across the ground, Elendor tumbling midair before regaining control with a quick stabilizing spell. Gasps rippled through the stadium. Arden rose to his knees, squinting through the swirling dust. At the center of the crater, a towering silhouette began to take shape, humanoid but colossal. Its form pulsed with purple luminescence, as though carved from living starstone. Ancient symbols crawled across its arms like molten runes. Elendor spoke first, tone uncharacteristically tense. Impossible. That seal was meant to hold forever. Arden scrambled to his feet. You know what that thing is? Elendor nodded grimly. An arcane sentinel. Created in the First Age to enforce magical law. They sleep beneath old dueling grounds, waiting, watching. They activate only when they sense forbidden magic. Arden blinked. Forbidden magic? We didn't use anything. Elendor cut in, eyes narrowing at the glowing cracks. That lightning-water combination, and your solar flare pulse, and my cryofung, all unleashed within seconds. Too much raw arcane power. To the sentinel, it might look like we're trying to tear the fabric of magic itself. Arden glanced at the towering figure as it finished reforming, violet eyes blazing with mechanical precision. Well, that's bad. The sentinel took a thunderous step forward, its voice echoing like grinding stone. Arcane unbalance detected. Termination protocol initiated. The crowd screamed. Protective wards around the stadium flickered as the ancient guardian's presence strained the entire system. Elendor descended, landing beside Arden. Human, our duel is over. I figured, Arden muttered. So what do we do? Run? Elendor cracked his neck, raising his hands. No. We stand together. Despite the tension, Arden smirked. About time we fought on the same side. The sentinel raised its arm. A massive orb of violet energy formed, swirling with gravitational force. If it struck, the entire arena, and everyone in it, would be erased. Arden and Elendor exchanged a single look. Then both charged their magic at once. Arden summoned fire and light. Elendor called storm and frost. Their combined energies spiraled together, forming a swirling barrier of gold and blue. The sentinel's attack launched forward like a falling star. As the two mages unleashed their combined counterattack, a second tremor shook the arena, because the sentinel wasn't the only thing waking up below. The sentinel's violet blast collided with Arden and Elendor's combined barrier with a deafening shockwave. Gold and blue spiraled violently as the impact rippled across the arena, bending the air and cracking the crystalline walls. The audience shielded their ears as the two forces struggled for dominance. Arden planted his feet, pushing against the overwhelming surge. "This thing is stronger than anything I've seen." Elendor gritted his teeth beside him, lightning crawling up his arms. Sentinels were forged to overpower armies. But our fusion spell, if timed right, should at least divert its strike. "Should," Arden shouted. "We're improvising." Elendor shot back. Their barrier pulsed, then finally split the Sentinel's blast, redirecting it upward through the dome. A beam of violet energy tore into the sky, slicing clouds in half before dissipating. The audience erupted in panicked cheers, relief mixed with fear. Arden gasped for breath. "Okay, one hit survived. That's progress." But Elendor didn't respond. His sharp elven hearing caught something else, another tremor, deeper and darker than before. His gaze snapped to the cracked floor. "Arden, look." The fissures widened again, glowing with a darker hue, deep crimson, not violet. If the Sentinel's awakening was a warning sign, this was something entirely different. A second voice echoed from below, but unlike the Sentinel's mechanical monotone, this one was guttural, ancient, and dripping with malice. "At last, the lock weakens." Arden's blood ran cold. That was not another Sentinel. "No," Elendor whispered. "That was something sealed beneath the Sentinels." The floor of the arena convulsed violently. Entire sections of enchanted crystal shattered like glass, revealing a spiraling abyss of red energy swirling far below. The crowd screamed as emergency runes flickered to life, shielding the spectators with a thin dome. Arden stepped back instinctively. "Elendor, what else is under this arena?" Elendor's expression darkened. In the First Age, when arcane wars nearly destroyed civilization, the old mages sealed away creatures too powerful to kill. They buried them under the arenas, using sentinels as guards. Arden stared into the crimson abyss. "So that thing waking up is one of the ancient arcane predators," Elendor finished. "Creatures that feed on raw magic." Almost on cue, the sentinel turned its head toward the crack. Its violet eyes dimmed, then refracted as if scanning the disturbance. It raised its arms, forming a new energy sphere, this one aimed not at Arden or Elendor, but at the awakening presence below. Arden frowned. "Wait, is it trying to reseal the creature?" "Yes," Elendor said. "But if the predator emerges before the sentinel fires, everything above and below the arena is finished." A roar erupted from the abyss, low, echoing, and hungry. Crimson claws emerged, gripping the edge of the chasm. Arden's heart pounded. "Elendor, that thing is climbing out." Elendor tightened his grip on his magic. "Then we have seconds. We strike with the sentinel or die with the arena." The predator's massive head began to rise, eyes burning like twin crimson suns. Both mage and machine prepared to fire, just as the predator tore free from the abyss, unleashing a shockwave so powerful it shattered every ward in the arena. The shockwave tore through the arena like a living hurricane, shattering protective wards and sending a blast of wind roaring across the stands. Spectators toppled backward as emergency barriers flickered and fractured. The glow of broken enchantments rained down like glittering dust. Arden shielded his face with his arm, struggling to stay upright as the crimson energy pulsed outward. Beside him, Elendor dug his boots into the cracked crystal floor, anchoring himself with a stabilizing spell. The arcane predator emerged fully from the abyss. Its massive form rose like a nightmare wrought from molten darkness. Its body looked forged from obsidian and living shadow, veins pulsing with blood-red luminescence. 4 burning eyes glared at the arena, eyes that held hunger, rage, and centuries of confinement. When it breathed, the air shuddered, each exhale warping the very mana around it. Arden whispered, "That is not a creature. It's a calamity." Elendor didn't argue. "And it's starved. Centuries without magic." "Arden, it's going to drain the entire arena." The predator's claws scraped against the floor, molten energy trailing behind them. It looked from the crowd to the 2 mages, then to the sentinel. Then it growled, a bone-deep, world-shaking sound. The sentinel stepped forward, voice booming in its monotone resonance. "Unauthorized entity detected. Purge protocol initiated." Its core flared violet. A beam of concentrated arcane energy charged at its chest. The predator did not retreat. It absorbed the blast. The crowd gasped. The sentinel staggered backward, its energy siphoned into the creature's glowing veins. Elendor's eyes widened. It's feeding, instantly. The sentinel is powerful, but the predator, it's a devourer. Energy only strengthens it. Arden groaned, rubbing his temples. Great. So the giant murder monster gets stronger every time it's attacked. Any ideas? One, Elendor muttered bitterly, but you're not going to like it. The predator lunged. Its claws slammed into the arena floor, cracks spidering outward as Arden narrowly dodged the strike with a quick burst of wind magic. Elendor summoned a barrier of ice, but the predator smashed through it as if it were paper. Arden rolled aside just as a claw descended where he had stood. The predator's roar shook the dome itself. Elendor shouted over the chaos, "We can't overpower it. Magic only accelerates it. We need something else, something it can't absorb." Physical force? Arden guessed. Not enough. The predator swung again. The sentinel intercepted, tackling the monstrosity, their colossal forms crashing together. Energy crackled violently as ancient construct and ancient beast grappled for dominance. Arden yelled, "Elendor, your idea. What is it?" Elendor's eyes glimmered with a desperate spark. "We need to sever its connection to the arcane flow. Completely." Arden blinked. "And how do we do that?" "By breaking the arena's core." Arden froze. "That would collapse the entire containment field." "Yes," Elendor replied. "And if we don't, the predator will consume every living being here." The sentinel was losing, slowly crushed under the predator's growing strength. Arden clenched his fists. "Then we destroy the core." But as the two mages sprinted toward the arena's heart, the predator sensed their intent, its four blazing eyes locking onto them as it abandoned the sentinel and charged with unstoppable fury. Elendor sprinted across the fractured arena, dodging debris and arcs of wild magic as the arcane predator let out a furious, bone-shaking roar behind them. The creature's footsteps slammed into the ground like falling meteors, each impact cracking the crystalline floor even further. The sentinel, damaged and staggering, attempted to restrain the beast again, but this time it was too slow. The predator tore free and lunged after the mages. "Faster!" Elendor shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. Arden didn't waste breath answering. He channeled wind beneath their feet, boosting their speed as they raced toward the center of the arena where the core conduit lay hidden beneath ancient glyphwork. The core, heart of the containment dome, glimmered faintly through cracks that spidered across its now exposed surface. When they reached it, Arden skidded to a halt. "This thing is massive. How do we even break it?" "With precision," Elendor replied, already forming an intricate spell circle of shimmering blue sigils. "Strike the stabilizer glyphs. If enough collapse at once, the core will rupture." Arden swallowed. "Rupture as in explode?" "Preferably controlled," Elendor said. The predator roared, closing the distance rapidly. Arden raised his hands. "No pressure then." He unleashed a barrage of focused flame bolts at the ancient stabilizers embedded around the core. The glyphs flickered, dimmed but did not break. The predator leapt. Elendor reacted instantly, slamming his palms into the ground. A pillar of ice shot upward, slamming into the beast's chest and knocking it back mid-air. The impact sent cracks racing across Elendor's spell circle, but it bought precious seconds. "Arden, again?" Elendor shouted. Arden ignited a second blast. Flame, light, and raw willpower fused into a burning lance. It struck the stabilizer. The glyph shattered. "One down." Arden gasped. The predator roared with rage, its eyes burning hotter. It lunged again. This time Arden stood his ground. He thrust both arms forward, summoning a concentrated burst of solar energy. Solar nova. The eruption blinded the immediate area in searing white light. The predator recoiled, screeching as the light scorched its obsidian armor. It staggered, just long enough for Elendor to smash two more stabilizers with razor-sharp shards of ice. But the creature recovered faster than expected. It slammed its claw into the ground, sending a shockwave that threw both mages backward. Arden rolled painfully across the floor. Elendor somersaulted through the air, landing hard beside him. The predator advanced, each step cracking the glowing lines of the core beneath them. Elendor spat blood and stood, swaying. "One more stabilizer. That's all we need." Arden forced himself upright, panting. "And how do we get past that?" He pointed at the predator, now blocking direct access to the final glyph. Elendor's eyes narrowed. "We draw it away. A risky maneuver, but I know a spell that might work." Arden read his tone instantly. "Let me guess, something insane?" "Precisely." Elendor raised both hands. Wind spiraled around him, lightning flickering at his fingertips. A storm gathered inside his palms, violent, humming, unstable. Arden's eyes widened. Elendor, that's a catastrophic chant. You'll blow half the arena apart. Yes, Elendor said, stepping forward. But if it gives us 3 seconds to break the last glyph, it's worth it. The predator crouched, ready to pounce. Elendor exhaled once, calm and resolute. Then he launched himself toward the beast. Arden had only moments to act, because Elendor's suicidal distraction spell began to spiral out of control, drawing the predator, the sentinel, and the entire arena's collapsing magic into one deadly convergence point. Elendor sprinted straight toward the arcane predator, lightning spiraling wildly from his arms. The unstable chant he had begun twisted the air around him, bending light and cracking the floor beneath every step. The predator turned its monstrous head, its 4 burning eyes narrowing as it sensed an eruption of power, something worthy of devouring. Arden felt the pressure of Elendor's spell even from afar. Elendor, that thing will rip you apart before you can cast. Elendor didn't look back. Then make sure my death isn't in vain. Arden's chest tightened. Elendor never joked. Not in moments like this. The predator lunged first, claws slicing through the air, aiming to crush the elf in a single blow. Elendor leapt upward, riding a swirl of conjured wind. The creature's strike missed by inches, gouging a molten scar across the arena floor. Hovering above the beast, Elendor extended both arms outward. The storm inside him ignited. At first it was only wind, then lightning, then raw elemental chaos. A vortex of blue-white energy spun around him, expanding into a spiraling sphere that roared like a living hurricane. The creature looked up, captivated by the feast of uncontrollable power. Elendor shouted down, voice shaking with strain. Arden, break the last glyph now. Arden spun toward the final stabilizer, still intact and glowing bright gold. He sprinted, ignoring the burning in his lungs. He could feel Elendor's magic destabilizing the entire arena. Time was running out. But the predator wasn't the only one reacting. The sentinel staggered forward, its massive frame cracked and sparking, but its logic core still functioning. It scanned Elendor's storm sphere, then the predator, then Arden moving toward the glyph. It suddenly changed targets, turning its attention fully toward the core. No, no, no! Arden shouted. The sentinel was preparing to fire on him. Core compromise detected, it boomed. Termination of threat required. Arden dove behind a fallen slab of crystal just as a violet beam scorched the ground where he'd been standing. The sentinel had mistaken his actions for an attack on the arena itself, not realizing that destroying the core was their only chance of survival. Elendor's spell grew louder, crackling with violent instability. Arden burst from cover, flames crackling across his palms as he hurled himself at the final glyph. The predator leapt at Elendor. The sentinel charged another blast at Arden. Everything happened at once. Arden swung his arm downward and unleashed a concentrated strike of light directly onto the stabilizer. Crack. A burst of golden sparks erupted as the glyph shattered. The core pulsed, once, twice, then began to collapse inward like a dying star. The entire arena lurched violently. Elendor's vortex imploded, pulling the predator off balance and dragging the sentinel several steps backward. The sphere of chaotic magic tore at the monster's obsidian body, ripping chunks of shadow and crimson energy away. Elendor screamed as the spell consumed the last of his strength. Arden barely stayed standing, shielding his eyes as the vortex detonated in a blinding flash. When the dust cleared, Elendor lay motionless on the ground. The predator staggered, weakened but very much alive, its 4 burning eyes fixed on Arden. And the arena core was collapsing into a spiraling void that threatened to pull everything in. With Elendor down, the predator wounded, and the collapsing core threatening to annihilate the entire arena, Arden realized he had only one impossible choice left: jump into the void, or face the monster alone. The arena groaned as the collapsing core pulled the air downward in a spiraling suction. Crystal shards, broken glyphs, and fragments of arena stone tumbled toward the forming void. The stands trembled, wards flickering and struggling to keep the crowd protected. Arden stood at the center of chaos. Elendor unconscious behind him, the arcane predator looming before him, and the spiraling core threatening to swallow everything beneath his feet. The predator growled low, its 4 eyes narrowing on Arden. Despite its weakened form, its presence was suffocating. It dragged its claws across the ground, gathering crimson energy that pulsed through its obsidian veins. Arden exhaled sharply. Figures, you'd still be standing. The creature hissed, a sound like molten metal hitting cold water. Then it charged. Arden barely reacted in time. He cast a burst of wind beneath his feet, launching himself upward as the predator's massive claw carved through the ground where he had stood a heartbeat before. The air rippled with the force of the strike. Arden flipped in midair, sending a volley of firebolts downward. They exploded against the predator's armor, but as Elendor warned, it absorbed energy feeding off the magic. The creature's wounds knit closed. Arden landed near the collapsing core, boots scraping against the trembling crystal. Magic strengthens you, he muttered. Good to know. The void roared louder, pulling debris and fractured spellwork into its swirling center. Arden could feel its gravitational tug on his arms, his robes, even his breath. He looked at Elendor, still unmoving, chest barely rising. Hang in there. The predator roared again, louder, angrier, as it realized Arden stood between it and a feast of raw arcane energy. It wanted the core. It wanted the collapse. It wanted everything. But Arden wasn't running. He planted his feet, summoning not flame, not lightning, not energy, but force, pure kinetic will shape through disciplined sorcery. A rare human technique. The predator lunged again. Arden thrust his palm forward. Kinetic break. A shockwave of invisible force blasted from his hand, slamming into the predator's chest. For the first time the creature stumbled, its armor cracking where magic had not been used. Arden smirked. Got you. But the victory was short-lived. The void behind him widened, expanding with each pulse. Its pull intensified, dragging everything, including Arden, closer to the edge. He dug his boots in, resisting the pull. The predator wasn't resisting. It used the void's pull. It let the collapsing core drag it forward, and used that momentum to leap at Arden with murder in its eyes. Arden spun, but he wasn't fast enough. The predator struck, and both of them were pulled into the spiraling core. Spectators screamed. Elendor, half-conscious, reached feebly toward the collapsing light. The world folded, twisted. Then the void snapped shut. Arden, the predator, and the shattered heart of the arena vanished. When Arden opened his eyes, he found himself in a place with no sky, no ground, no up or down, just a labyrinth of shifting magic, and the predator roaring somewhere in the dimensional darkness. Arden's eyes snapped open. There was no sky, no ground, no horizon. Just an endless swirl of drifting platforms made from fractured spell weave, floating in a void of shimmering energy. Color bled through the air like living aurora. Gravity shifted in pulses, tugging him sideways, upward then not at all. He pushed himself upright, boots finding balance on a circular platform etched with ancient glyphs. Each step sent ripples across the surface, as if he were standing on a membrane stretched over infinity. Arden exhaled shakily. Where in the realms am I? A voice echoed through the shifting expanse, not spoken but resonating inside his mind. The arcane interspace. Arden spun, searching. Who said that? The voice responded. The realm between magic and reality. Accessible only through core collapse. Arden frowned. A dimensional pocket, formed by the arena's power? Correct. The voice grew quieter, fading into the distortion of the labyrinth. Before Arden could question further, a deafening roar tore through the void. The predator. Its silhouette appeared on a distant floating platform, larger now, its obsidian armor glowing with new crimson veins. The energy here was feeding it, unfiltered ancient arcane essence that strengthened the monstrosity with every breath. Arden muttered, Great. An endless magic buffet for the thing that eats magic. The predator leapt onto the next platform, then the next, each one cracking and dissolving under its weight. It was moving faster than before, tearing through the labyrinth on a direct path to him. Arden sprinted across a narrow bridge of light, feeling it tremble beneath his feet. The platforms twisted and rotated as the labyrinth reconfigured itself, reacting to his presence, or to the predator's pursuit. He reached a junction where three paths diverged into nothingness. The predator roared behind him. Arden didn't think. He leapt onto the leftmost path. The bridge dissolved under him. He fell, tumbling through weightless space until another platform flickered into existence beneath him. He hit the surface hard, rolling to break the impact. A voice echoed again, weaker than before. You must stabilize the labyrinth, or it will unmake you both. Arden coughed. Stabilize it? I don't even know how to survive it. The predator landed on a platform above him, cracking it in half with its weight. It was close now, close enough for Arden to see the molten glow rising behind its jagged teeth. Arden scrambled backward as the beast leapt down toward him. He raised his hand in instinct. Kinetic shield. The barrier formed just in time, the predator slamming into it with a thunderous crack. The force launched Arden backward, skidding across the platform's edge. He gripped the surface, dangling over an abyss of swirling magic that pulsed like a living storm. The predator lunged again. Arden rolled aside as the beast crashed into the platform, shattering a chunk of it into floating fragments. He needed a plan. He needed help. He needed Elendor. But Elendor wasn't here. Instead, the labyrinth itself answered. A faint glow appeared on the far side of the platform, shimmering, humanoid, and familiar. Arden's breath caught. A figure stood there, formed from shimmering light and ancient glyphs. A figure with long elven features, glowing blue eyes. Elendor's spectral echo. Elendor's astral projection raised a hand toward Arden, just as the predator prepared its deadliest attack yet inside the unstable dimensional realm. Arden stared in disbelief as the shimmering figure of Elendor stepped forward across the unstable platform. Though made of glyph light and drifting arcane particles, the projection carried the same calm posture, the same sharp eyes, only now they glowed with ethereal intensity. Elendor? Arden breathed. The echo smiled faintly. Not entirely. Your collapse into the interspace awakened an imprint of me, my arcane residue tied to the core's magic. A fragment of my consciousness, nothing more. Arden barely had a second to absorb this before a roar shook the labyrinth. The predator landed on an adjacent platform, its obsidian claws melting through the glyph surface. We don't have time, the echo said. The predator grows stronger every moment it stays here. The interspace is pure magic, Arden. It will consume the beast, or empower it beyond anything in our realm. Arden clenched his fists. How do we stop it? You cannot kill it, the echo said. Not here. But you can contain it. Arden's heart pounded. Inside the interspace? Elendor's projection nodded. This realm can be reshaped by will. Your will. You are alive. It is not. You can force the labyrinth to collapse around the predator, trap it in a sealed subdimension. Arden looked around the endless maze of drifting platforms, glowing runes and spiraling auroras. You mean rewrite the entire dimension? Yes, the echo answered calmly. But only if you accept one thing. Arden swallowed. What? That changing this realm will change you. Before Arden could question further, the predator struck. It hurled a concentrated beam of crimson energy, slicing across platforms and tearing a rift through the interspace. Arden dove aside as the blast grazed his shoulder, ripping a searing line of pain across his arm. The echo flickered but held form. Arden, focus. The labyrinth obeys intention. Command the platform. Arden gritted his teeth, slammed his palm against the glyph surface and shouted. Shift. The platform obeyed. Glyphs flashed. The ground buckled, rotated, and shot upward like a rising elevator. The predator missed its leap, slamming into empty air and falling, only for a new platform to materialize beneath it. Arden cursed. It adapts too fast. That won't last, the echo said. The dimension is unstable. Soon the beast will fall through gaps it cannot predict. You must control the collapse. Arden took a shaky breath. Tell me how. The echo extended a glowing hand. Merge with the labyrinth. Let it read your intent. Shape it through will. You can close the walls around the predator and seal it forever. Arden hesitated. The predator didn't. It launched itself upward, landing onto Arden's platform with a thunderous crash. The surface splintered beneath its weight. The echo shouted, Now Arden. Arden pressed both hands to the platform. The glyphs ignited. The labyrinth trembled. And Arden felt the interspace begin to merge with his mind, surrounding him, recognizing him. The predator roared, charging with killing intent. Arden screamed as energy surged through him. The interspace responded to Arden's will, but not alone. Something else stirred inside the dimensional realm, something ancient, watching and ready to intervene. Energy surged through Arden like liquid fire. His hands pressed into the glowing glyphs of the platform as the interspace responded, pulling at his consciousness, merging with his thoughts, connecting him to every drifting fragment of this dimensional labyrinth. The world around him shifted, rippled, then slowed. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Arden's vision blurred, replaced by endless layers of light and geometry, spirals of spell form, rivers of mana, and thousands of floating platforms suspended like stars. Every piece was connected. Every fragment waited for purpose. A presence stirred behind the chaos. Ancient, boundless, anchored mind detected. Arden froze. What are you? The first architect. Creator of the core. Shaper of this interspace. A chill ran through him. He wasn't alone in this dimension. He was sharing the network with something that had crafted the arena ages ago. Why are you here? Arden whispered. I am always here. Sleeping. Watching. Waiting for one who can command the labyrinth. Arden swallowed. And now I can? You must. The devourer must be sealed. Failure results in dimensional collapse. Before Arden could answer, the predator roared, more furious than ever. It slammed its claws into the platform, cracks spreading toward Arden's hands. The echo of Elendor shouted, Arden, focus your mind. Shape the labyrinth. Arden gritted his teeth, tightening his grip on the glyphs as the interspace pulsed through him. His thoughts began to influence the environment. He pictured a wall, and a platform rose. He imagined a barrier, and shimmering wards formed out of thin air. He envisioned a cage, and chains of pure mana spiraled out from the void. The predator recoiled as the interspace began to react violently to Arden's will. Tendrils of shifting glyph light wrapped around its limbs. But the beast was relentless. It shredded the first chains instantly, emitting a screech that shook the entire dimension. Arden yelled, It's not enough. It's too strong. Elendor's projection stepped beside him, placing a glowing hand on Arden's shoulder. You're not alone. Use my will. And the architects. Combine them. Arden closed his eyes. 3 consciousnesses aligned. Elendor's echo. And the ancient architect. The interspace trembled as their combined intent surged outward. Platforms rearranged themselves in rapid spirals. Walls folded inward. Bridges collapsed and reformed into a twisting cage around the predator. The dimension itself shifted like a living creature responding to command. The predator howled and leapt upward, claws ready to tear Arden apart. But Arden thrust his arms outward. Converge. The labyrinth obeyed. Every floating platform snapped together, forming a colossal geometric prison that sealed around the predator with a thunderous shockwave. Glyphs ignited across the structure, binding the beast inside a maze of endless repeating loops. The predator slammed against the walls, but each strike bounced it deeper into the prison's recursive layers. Arden gasped. It's working. But the architect's voice rumbled through the void. The seal requires a final key. A living will to maintain it. Arden's heart froze. A living will? You mean? One of you must stay. Elendor's echo turned toward Arden. His expression was calm, too calm. Arden, Elendor said softly, you can still escape. But I was already dying when you fell into the core. Arden's pulse hammered in his ears. Elendor's projection stood before him, fading at the edges, his form flickering like a candle fighting the wind. The echo was never truly alive, yet the presence, the voice, the will, it was unmistakably Elendor. You said you were already dying, Arden whispered. When the predator's shockwave hit me, my body was failing, the echo said softly. This projection is everything my mind had left. A memory, and a purpose. Arden shook his head violently. No, I'm not leaving you. We can find another way. We always do. The architect's ancient voice rumbled through the interspace. The seal must be anchored by a consciousness. Without one it will break, and the devourer will return. The dimensional prison trembled as the predator hurled itself against the walls. Each strike sent shockwaves through the labyrinth. The glyphs flickered. The cage would not hold long. Elendor stepped closer, his spectral hand resting on Arden's shoulder, light but steady. You are the one who can reshape this realm, Arden. You are alive. You can return home. Rebuild the arena. Warn the kingdoms. I cannot. Arden clenched his fists. If you stay, you'll disappear. Elendor smiled, the faintest curve of lips. I already have. For a moment Arden couldn't speak. He felt the interspace shifting around him, the architect waiting, the labyrinth trembling, the predator battering the prison walls with escalating fury. Elendor continued, voice calm, steady, unbearably proud. You were my student. And now, you surpass me. You have the will to reshape worlds. Go. What? And let me be the key. The platforms beneath them shuddered, cracks of crimson light shining through as the predator roared in desperation. The prison strained, ready to tear open at any moment. Arden swallowed hard. Elendor, thank you. The echo nodded once. Goodbye, Arden Vale. Make the world safer than we left it. Arden stepped backward, lifting his hands toward the labyrinth. He focused, channeling all the remaining will he had left. Release me, He commanded the interspace. The architect answered. Light exploded beneath his feet as a portal ripped open, bright, blinding, pulling him upward toward the real world. Arden's body lifted, weightless, carried by the dimensional currents. As he rose, he looked down one last time. Elendor's projection walked toward the heart of the labyrinth, toward the shifting prison, toward the predator. His form glowed brighter, merging with the glyphs, reinforcing them, becoming part of the seal itself. The predator roared in defiance, and was silenced as the labyrinth wrapped around it, folding in on itself like a closing fist. Elendor vanished with it. The seal closed. The interspace collapsed. Light swallowed everything. Arden's eyes snapped open. He was lying in the shattered Grand Arcane Arena. The core was gone. The predator was gone. The sentinel lay dormant, repaired by the collapse. Spectators stared in stunned silence. Emergency healers rushed toward him. But something else caught Arden's gaze. A faint blue sigil glowing on his palm. Elendor's mark. A gift. A memory. A promise. Arden rose slowly to his feet. The world had almost ended, and something ancient had been sealed away forever. Or so he hoped. Far beneath the arena ruins, a single crimson eye flickered inside the sealed dimension. The predator was trapped, but definitely not finished.